The first time Aubrey Lane realized she was a prisoner, it was so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat echoing in the glass. She stood in the middle of the living room, one hand under her 8-month belly, the other pressed against the cold slider window. Outside, the trees behind the Westchester house were black silhouettes against the distant glow of the Manhattan skyline. It should have been a beautiful view. Tonight, it felt like a painting she could never step into. Her iPhone lay on the marble counter, screen dark, useless. Grayson had reset it for security that afternoon, his voice smooth, patient, like he was talking to a child. New number, new Apple ID. All her old contacts lost in the transfer, including her father. Aubrey swallowed hard. Grayson? Her voice sounded thin in the big open room. The front door won't open. From his office down the hall, she heard the faint click of a keyboard, the low hum of his voice on a call. For a moment, she thought he hadn't heard her. Then the call cut off. Footsteps, slow and measured, crossed the hardwood toward her. "What do you mean it won't open?" he asked, though his eyes were already on the door, not on her. Aubrey pushed down on the handle again, just to show him. The smart lock flashed a red ring. Error. Try again. "It's jammed," she said. "I was just going to sit on the porch for a minute, get some air." "You don't need the porch," Grayson said. "You have air in here." His tone was light, almost teasing, but something in his jaw tightened. He took his phone from his pocket, opened the home security app, and with one tap turned every lock in the house solid red. "System glitch," he said. "With everything going on at CyberShield, I can't risk someone hacking their way into our home. Until I get the firewall fixed, nobody goes in or out unless I'm with them. Not even you, okay?" Aubrey stared at the door. "Grayson, I can't even walk in the yard. I've been inside all day." He stepped closer, touching her cheek with the back of his fingers. To anyone watching, it would look tender. To Aubrey, it felt like a test. "You're tired," he murmured. "The doctor said you need rest. I'm protecting you, protecting our son." The word son still made her chest ache. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe this was love, not control. But behind Grayson's shoulder, the security panel on the wall flickered. Every window showed a tiny red lock icon. The garage, the back door, even the gate at the end of the driveway. Closed, sealed. "What if there's a fire?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "There won't be? And if I need to go to the hospital?" He smiled then, the perfect Grayson Hale smile she'd fallen for in a crowded coffee shop in Soho. "Then I'll take you myself, baby. In the car, like a gentleman." He kissed her forehead and walked back toward his office, already lifting his phone to his ear. The door to his office clicked shut behind him. Not locked, just closed. Still, the sound made her flinch. Aubrey moved back to the glass. Her reflection stared at her. Messy bun, tired eyes, the swell of her belly under his oversized t-shirt. Somewhere out there, beyond the line of dark trees, her father Samuel Lane was living his quiet life, not knowing his granddaughter might be born inside a house she couldn't leave. Her eyes burned. She whispered, "Dad, I think I made a mistake." The security panel beeped softly. For the first time, Aubrey noticed a new line of text scrolling across the tiny screen, words she was sure hadn't been there this morning. "Voice access disabled. Master user only." She didn't know what that meant in technical terms, but her body understood before her mind did. Her shoulders went rigid. Her fingers dug into the thin cotton of her shirt. For the first time since she'd moved into this beautiful smart home with the man everyone envied, Aubrey felt something heavier than fear settle in her chest. It was the cold, sinking weight of realization. She wasn't living in a sanctuary. She was standing in a locked cage, and the man who held the key had just decided she didn't need one. Aubrey Lane used to believe she could read people. Growing up with a father in the FBI made her think she had inherited some instinct, an invisible radar that buzzed when someone meant trouble. But if she truly had that gift, it failed her the day she met Grayson Hale. It was a warm autumn Saturday in Soho, the kind of day when New York it was posing for its own movie poster. Aubrey had taken the early train from Brooklyn for a photography workshop she'd saved up for, Streetlight and Human Stories. Her old Canon hung around her neck, the strap frayed but familiar. She remembered thinking this might be the first step toward rebuilding her portfolio after losing her biggest contract. She never imagined it would be the day her life divided into before and after. The studio hosting the workshop sat above a tiny espresso bar with Edison bulbs and brick walls. As she reached the top of the stairs, juggling her coffee and camera bag, someone barreled out from the door. She jerked back, but not fast enough. Her coffee tipped and splashed across the floor. "Whoa, sorry. My fault." A man caught her elbow before she could stumble. His touch was firm, steady. She looked up. Grayson Hale. Back then, he wasn't the polished, untouchable tech founder the world saw now. He looked casual. Dark sweater, messy hair, tired eyes that somehow still sparkled. A man who looked like he'd been awake 3 nights, but could talk you into believing he was fine. "I ruined your drink," he said, crouching with a handful of napkins. "Let me buy you another." "It's okay," she replied, embarrassed. "I should have been watching." "No," he interrupted gently. "I'm the one who walked out like a freight train." He stood, rubbing the back of his neck, the corner of his mouth lifting. "Are you here for the workshop?" She nodded. "Me too. I'm terrible at photography," he confessed. "My assistant said I need to expand my creative empathy or something." He used air quotes, charmingly self-deprecating. "Basically, she thinks I need a hobby that isn't cybersecurity." "Cybersecurity?" Aubrey asked. He laughed. "Yeah, sounds boring, right? I swear I'm not as robotic as my job makes me sound." She smiled despite herself. They walked in together, and it didn't take long for conversation to flow. He asked questions, not shallow ones, but the kind that made her feel seen. He studied her photos during the break, voice soft but impressed. "You don't just take pictures," he said. "You tell stories." Nobody had ever said that to her. Not like that. Not with that kind of certainty. When the workshop ended, rain started falling in light silver streaks across the street. Aubrey hesitated by the door, not wanting to stand in the drizzle while waiting for the bus. Grayson tilted his head. "I've got an umbrella," he said. "Walk with me?" She could have said no. She could have gone straight home. But the way he held the umbrella, not over himself, but slightly toward her, felt like an invitation into a world she'd forgotten existed. They walked toward Houston Street, talking about everything from 90s music to their favorite childhood books. When Aubrey mentioned she'd grown up with a strict ex-FBI father, Grayson's eyebrows lifted, not with judgment but curiosity. "That must have been intense," he said thoughtfully. "No wonder you're good at reading people." She laughed then, actually laughed, and missed the flicker in his expression. Something calculating, something assessing, something she would only recognize months later. After they reached the station entrance, he hesitated. "Can I see you again?" he asked. Aubrey's heart thumped a little too hard, but in a good way, a warm way, a way that made her forget the loneliness of the past few years. She gave him her number. He walked her down the stairs, making sure she got through the turnstile safely. "Text me when you get home," he said, "so I know you're okay." At the time, it felt sweet. Now, trapped in his Westchester house, she replayed that moment in her mind, realizing she should have asked a different question that day. Why did a man she barely knew need to know she got home safe? Looking back, that wasn't tenderness. It was the first thread of a web he'd already begun spinning around her. Samuel Lane had learned long ago that silence could be a friend or an enemy. In his line of work, tracking criminals, interrogating liars, reading danger in the tiny muscles of a stranger's face, silence was a tool sharper than any blade. But in retirement, silence became something else entirely. It became a weight. Most mornings in his small Virginia house began the same way. Coffee in a faded FBI mug, the Washington Post folded neatly on the counter, the old TV playing the news at a low murmur. He tried to pretend the routine was peaceful. Truthfully, it was punishment, self-assigned, self-earned, because every quiet morning reminded him of the daughter who no longer called. On this particular day, sunlight fell through the blinds in thin slits across the kitchen table. Samuel sat in his usual place, fingers brushing the spine of an old case file, not because he needed it, but because old habits didn't retire easily. His phone buzzed once. Email notification. He didn't look at it. Hardly anyone wrote to him anymore. He opened the fridge, pulled out leftover chicken, then froze when he saw something taped to the door. A small photo. Aubrey at age 8, missing one front tooth, holding a disposable camera and grinning like the world loved her. He'd taped it there after she left 8 years ago. Not to forget her. Quite the opposite. To remind himself that he'd failed her long before she walked out. He sank into the chair again, rubbing his temple. His chest tightened the way it always did when memories rose uninvited. The fight, the slammed door, the words he couldn't take back. "Dad, you're suffocating me. I'm not a suspect. I'm your daughter." "You're reckless, Aubrey. You trust too easily. One day it'll get you hurt." She'd left the same night, backpack slung over her shoulder, tears streaking mascara down her cheeks. He'd watched from the window, but didn't go after her. Pride can be as destructive as any weapon. He was wrong then. He knew it now. He glanced at the unopened email on his phone. Normally he would have ignored it a while longer, but something old and instinctive nudged him. He picked up the phone, tapping the screen. The subject line hit him like a fist. "Dad, it's me." His pulse lurched. His thumb trembled slightly as he tapped the email, but the content didn't load. Just a blank box and a half-downloaded image icon. The sender's address disappeared after a second, replaced by an error message. Message corrupted, attachment unavailable. Samuel's breath lodged in his throat. He tried refreshing. Nothing. Tried again. Nothing. It could have been spam. It could have been a mistake. It could have been anything. But his instincts, the ones that had saved lives, cracked cases, spotted danger in the smallest pattern, told him this wasn't random. His daughter hadn't contacted him in nearly a decade. So why was she reaching out now? He stood, pacing to the narrow hallway lined with framed commendations he never felt proud of. His heart hammered against his ribs in a way that reminded him of the nights he'd kicked down doors during raids. He dialed her old number. Disconnected. He dialed again. Still disconnected. A familiar panic clawed up his spine. A feeling he hadn't experienced since the day a hostage negotiation went sideways in 2004. "Aubrey," he whispered, gripping the back of the couch, knuckles white. "What's happening to you?" He crossed the living room to a locked cabinet, took out a small, worn leather notebook. Inside were names, contacts, old colleagues, people who owed him favors or still trusted his judgment. He wasn't sure what he was looking for yet, but he knew this. If Aubrey was trying to reach him after all these years, she wasn't doing it casually. Something was wrong. The silence in the house suddenly felt heavier. Dangerous. Samuel grabbed his keys, wallet, and the notebook, his body moving with the old, efficient purpose he thought he'd buried. He paused at the door only long enough to look once more at the picture of 8-year-old Aubrey, smiling from the fridge. "I'm coming, kid," he murmured. "Whatever this is, I'm coming." And for the first time in years, the quiet was no longer peaceful. It was a warning. In the beginning, Grayson Hale made Aubrey feel like she was the rarest person in New York, a city famous for swallowing people whole. He didn't rush her. He didn't play the games she'd grown used to from men on apps or in bars. Instead, he showed up with gentleness, wrapped in confidence, wrapped in just enough mystery to feel exciting rather than dangerous. At first, it started with small things. Safe things. Things that felt like thoughtfulness. The week after the Soho workshop, he sent her a photo he'd taken, her silhouette against a rain-washed window, unaware he'd even been watching. "You look like someone the world should slow down for," the message read. Aubrey had stared at the text far too long before typing back something shy, unsure, flattering. They went out for coffee. Dinner. Walks through Central Park, where Grayson always kept his hand on the small of her back, guiding her gently, like she was precious cargo. She brushed it off as old-fashioned chivalry. A sweet quirk. The first time he invited her to his Manhattan office, she stepped into a world she didn't belong to. CyberShield Labs occupied the 41st floor of a sleek Park Avenue tower. Everything was glass, steel, and quiet money. Grayson walked with the ease of someone who owned more than the place, someone who owned the room. His employees greeted him with respect, admiration. One even said, "The boss actually smiling? Must be a special day." Grayson looked at Aubrey when he heard that. And she felt special. It was easy to fall for him after that. He took her to a rooftop lounge overlooking Fifth Avenue, where the city spread below like a jeweled map. He picked up the check without letting her see the number. He memorized her favorite pastries from the bakery near her old apartment. He even offered to help her get more photography clients by connecting her with his network. Things escalated gently, naturally. Until the night, it didn't feel gentle at all. They were walking back from dinner near Bryant Park when a cyclist flew by too close, brushing Aubrey's arm. She startled. Grayson reacted instantly, too instantly. He grabbed the cyclist by the collar and slammed him against a street pole. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Grayson snarled. The cyclist stammered an apology. Aubrey touched Grayson's arm. "Stop. I'm fine. Please." Grayson froze, chest heaving, eyes pitch black. Then, just like a switch, he let go. His shoulders softened. His voice dropped back into that smooth cadence. "Sorry, you scared me. I thought he hurt you." Aubrey brushed off the unease in her chest. Anyone could overreact when the person they cared about was nearly hit. But even then, she noticed the way he kept glancing over his shoulder afterward. Checking, assessing, protecting, or surveilling. She didn't know. The first real red flag came later, subtle as a shadow. She was showing him photos on her phone when he said, "You should let me clean this up for you. Your storage is a mess." Before she could answer, he pulled the phone from her hand, typing quickly. She watched his fingers move like he'd done it before. Like he wasn't asking, he was changing settings. "Grayson," she said carefully, "what are you doing?" "Helping," he said with that perfect smile. But something had shifted, something she couldn't name yet. A few days later, he asked her to stay over more often, then to keep some clothes at his place, then to spend weekends at the quiet Westchester house he rarely used. She didn't see the pattern. Not yet. There was one night, though, one she replayed later with a tight chest, when he held her a little too close after she mentioned an upcoming work trip. "I just don't like the idea of you being far away," he murmured into her hair. She'd kissed him, thinking it was sweet. She didn't know then that every sweet moment was another thread in a web being spun around her. She didn't know she was being softened, studied, and slowly pulled away from the world she knew. She didn't know the sweetness was only there to make the fall feel deeper when it came. The first time Aubrey Lane realized her world was shrinking, it didn't come with a slam. It came with a suggestion. Soft, reasonable, wrapped in a tone that made disagreement feel ungrateful. It started on a Thursday morning. Aubrey sat on the edge of Grayson's Westchester bed, editing photos on her aging MacBook Air. The sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, turning the room warm and dreamy. She'd been staying there more frequently, 3 nights a week, then 4, then nearly every day. Grayson always said she looked more relaxed here, away from the noise of Brooklyn. "Maybe you should work from here," he said as he buttoned his crisp shirt in the mirror. Aubrey glanced up. "I do, most of the time." "No," he said gently. "I mean full-time. Clients can't tell the difference, and it's safer. Less traveling. Pregnancy isn't something you can push through." She blinked. "Pregnancy?" Grayson paused, then turned back to her, smiling like he'd shared a delightful secret. "I know you haven't taken the test yet, but I can tell." His hand touched her stomach softly. "I just feel it." Her throat tightened. They talked about kids, but she hadn't thought someday meant right now. Grayson, I don't know yet. I haven't." "It's okay," he whispered, kissing her temple. "You can take the test today. I'll pick up a few on my way home." Reasonable, calm, thoughtful. But her chest felt tight. Later that week, when she told him she needed to go to a client's studio in Midtown to shoot product images, he hesitated. "I'll drive you," he said. "That's an hour out of your way." "It's not out of my way if it keeps you safe." That phrase again. When she insisted on taking the train, he relented. But that afternoon, as she packed up her equipment, she discovered her Metro card missing from her bag. In its place was an Uber gift card and a note in Grayson's handwriting. "No more subway. Too many accidents lately." Aubrey's stomach sank. He always had an explanation, always wrapped in care. She brushed it off until the day her building's front door key stopped working. She'd gone back to her Brooklyn apartment to pick up mail and check on the plants her neighbor was watering. But when she slid the key into the lock, it jammed. She tried again. No click, just resistance. Her neighbor, Mrs. Hamilton, poked her head out of her door. "Oh, honey," she said gently. "Didn't your boyfriend mention? A man came earlier this week, said he was your fiancé, told the superintendent he was upgrading your locks for safety." Aubrey felt the air leave her lungs. "He did what?" Mrs. Hamilton smiled sympathetically. "He said you were forgetful with keys. Young love, you know?" Aubrey forced a nod, the hallway spinning slightly. When she texted Grayson about it, he responded instantly. "I told you I'd take care of the building's old locks. Didn't want you worrying. I'll bring your new key tonight. No apology, no explanation. Just control disguised as convenience." That night, while they ate dinner in silence, Aubrey looked around his perfect Westchester kitchen. The marble counters, the under-cabinet lighting, the organized spice drawer, and realized how little of her life existed here. No photos, no hobbies, no mess. No space that felt like hers. When she mentioned wanting to visit a friend in Queens that weekend, Grayson's fork paused midair. "Do you really want to exhaust yourself like that?" he asked softly. "It's not good for the baby." "The baby I haven't even confirmed?" she replied. He didn't blink. "You're pregnant, Aubrey. I know it. I can feel it. And I'm not letting you run around New York stressing yourself." Something cold slid down her spine. She knew then that this wasn't protection. It was permission. Permission for her to exist on terms he controlled. "I just need some space," she whispered. Grayson smiled gently, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "You don't need space," he said. "You need stability." She didn't argue. Not because she agreed, but because for the first time she realized arguing wouldn't change a thing. And when he slid the new key across the table, Aubrey knew something irreversible had just happened. Her life no longer opened the way it used to. It happened on a Saturday afternoon, quiet, gray, the kind of day when the world outside looked harmless. Aubrey Lane was in the Westchester house alone, curled on the couch with a blanket over her legs, sorting through photos on her camera. Grayson had left early for what he called an emergency systems audit at CyberShield Labs. He didn't kiss her goodbye. He simply touched her shoulder and said, "Stay inside. Doors locked. I'll be back soon." She told herself it was fine. They'd been tense for days. Maybe space was good. But the house felt bigger without him. Too quiet, too controlled. She wandered to his office, not to snoop, but because it was one of the few rooms with sunlight. The door wasn't locked, and she stepped inside. His desk was immaculate. Not a paper out of place, not a fingerprint on the glossy black monitor. Only his MacBook Pro sat open, screen glowing. She knew better. She should have walked away. But a movement on the screen caught her eye, an email notification sliding across the corner. Subject, final notice, offshore account activity reviewed. Her breath froze. She wasn't snooping. She was standing, just standing. But the email preview remained on the screen, glowing like a spotlight in the dark. Offshore account activity. She remembered hearing those exact words years ago from her father. A case he couldn't talk about. A network they'd chased but never caught. A tech group hiding money through encrypted channels. Her fingers were trembling before she even realized she'd sat down. The email disappeared when she touched the trackpad, but the laptop didn't lock. No password screen. Just the desktop. A folder sat in the corner labeled Q4 Clients, completely unassuming. Aubrey opened it. Hundreds of files stared back at her. Names, numbers, encrypted transfers. Accounts in countries she'd only heard mentioned in news stories about corruption and laundering. Some clients were companies. Some were individuals. One name, an executive she recognized from a Manhattan gala, made her mouth go dry. "Why would these be on Grayson's personal laptop?" she whispered. She clicked another folder. Security footage, not of the CyberShield building, of her. Clips of Aubrey walking in the kitchen, sleeping, eating cereal by the window, sorting clothes in the bedroom, every timestamp, every angle, every moment she thought she'd been alone. A sound rose in her throat, half gasp, half cry. She clamped her hand over her mouth. Oh my God. She backed away from the desk, heart pounding so hard her vision wavered. She needed to leave. She needed to call someone, her father, anyone. But her phone was in the kitchen. And when she ran toward it, it lit up on the counter. Incoming call. Grayson Hale. Her body went rigid. She didn't pick up. She stood there shaking until the call stopped, followed by a text. "On my way home, early. Don't go anywhere." Her stomach turned. She looked around the house, suddenly seeing every door, every camera, every lock differently, like the walls had been whispering at her for months, and she finally understood the language. She grabbed her phone. She ran to the bedroom to grab her bag. She made it 3 steps down the hallway before the front door clicked. Slowly. He was already home. She didn't hear a car, didn't hear gravel, nothing. Grayson stepped inside like he'd never left. "Aubrey," he said softly, closing the door behind him. Why did you open my office?" She froze. He hadn't even seen the inside. He just knew. Her pulse hammered against her ribs as he took one step forward. Then another. "You weren't supposed to go in there," he murmured. "Now we have a problem." Aubrey swallowed hard. "What problem?" Grayson smiled, calm and devastating. "The problem," he said, "is that you saw something you can't unsee." She stepped back. He stepped forward. And for the first time, Aubrey understood that the man she lived with wasn't just controlling. He was dangerous, and she had just crossed a line she might never come back from. For the next 3 days, Aubrey Lane lived inside her own body, like it was a shaking room she couldn't escape. Grayson had not yelled. He hadn't slammed a door. He hadn't even raised his voice the night she found the files. That was what scared her most. He simply closed the laptop, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, and said, "We'll talk in the morning." Then he kissed her forehead. Then he turned off the light. Then he locked the bedroom door from the outside. The click had echoed in her ribs. Now she sat at the marble kitchen island, stirring oatmeal she couldn't bring herself to eat. Pregnancy made her tired. Anxiety made her nauseous. Grayson made her trapped. He moved around the kitchen with eerie calm, like nothing was wrong. He prepared protein shakes, scanned emails on his phone, adjusted the thermostat, every movement precise, controlled, rehearsed. The same way he controlled her. "You didn't sleep well," he observed without looking at her. "I'm fine," Aubrey lied. "You don't look fine." She bit down on a tremor crawling up her throat. "I need some air, Grayson. Just 5 minutes outside." He froze, not visibly, but in the small ways she'd learned to notice. His breath paused. His hand tightened around the glass he held. "You know that's not a good idea right now." "Why?" she whispered. "Because you're overwhelmed," he said. "You're emotional, you're pregnant, and you misunderstood the files you saw." Aubrey's pulse spiked. "Did I?" Grayson set the glass down slowly, deliberately. "People pay me to protect their data." "That's all you saw. Data. Private clients. Sensitive accounts. You opened things that weren't meant for you. You scared yourself by looking without context." She swallowed. "What about the videos? The cameras in the house?" "For security," he answered instantly. Too instantly. "It's a large property." "In the bedroom?" He smiled, patient. "We've talked about your anxiety before. You panic when you wake up alone. Since the cameras are motion-triggered, to keep you safe." It was so calm, so logical, so rehearsed, and yet every word felt like a rope slipping tighter around her wrists. He stepped closer. Not threateningly, not loudly, just close enough that she couldn't breathe without smelling the mint on his skin. "Aubrey," he said gently, cupping her cheek. "I know the world has hurt you. I know your father trained you to see danger in everything. But I'm not danger. I'm the one who loves you. I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who's here." She tried to step back. His hand stayed on her cheek. "Don't pull away," he murmured. "It makes me feel like you don't trust me." Her lungs tightened. He lowered his hand, tapped a button on the counter tablet. The locks across the house clicked in unison. Metal sliding, systems activating, an electronic heartbeat pulsing through the walls. "Just until things calm down," he said. "Then we'll reset. Start fresh." Aubrey stared at the front door. No handle from her side, no physical key, only a keypad she didn't know the code to. Her chest ached. She tried a different approach. Softer, measured. "Grayson, I'm tired. Can I rest upstairs?" He nodded, almost relieved. "Of course." She started for the steps until he added, "Leave your phone down here." Aubrey froze. "Why?" "Because you don't need distractions," he said simply. "And because I need to finish syncing the new settings." "Hand it over." Her fingers curled around the device in her pocket. He extended his palm. "Aubrey." She placed the phone in his hand. He kissed her forehead again. She climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last, her pulse loud in her ears. In the hallway, she reached the bedroom and closed the door, but she didn't lock it. She wasn't allowed. A minute later, she heard Grayson's voice drifting up the stairs. Calm, measured, almost tender. "Security mode, engage." The house shifted. A hum, a click. Every window sealed, every exit closed. Aubrey wrapped her arms around her belly. "Baby," she whispered, "I'm so sorry." She pressed her forehead to the cold wall. Because now she knew with chilling certainty, Grayson didn't just want her safe, he wanted her silent. The night Aubrey Lane tried to reach her father, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Grayson had fallen asleep downstairs on the sofa, laptop open on his chest, the soft blue glow of code reflecting against his jaw. He'd spent hours tweaking security protocols, refusing to let her out of his sight. But sometime after midnight, exhaustion finally dragged him under. Aubrey waited 10 minutes, then 20, then 30. She counted every breath, every movement, every click in the house, mapping Grayson's patterns the way someone maps a predator's territory. When she was certain he was asleep, she eased her swollen body off the bed. Her ankles throbbed, her back ached, her palms were clammy with fear. But the need for help, real help, burned hotter than fear. She crept down the hallway, each step careful, each shadow familiar. Weeks of captivity had taught her where the cameras blinked, where the hardwood creaked, which vents amplified sound. The house was Grayson's weapon, but knowledge could turn anything into an escape tool. At the end of the hall was the door he always left cracked open. The basement. The one place she knew the signal was weaker. When she slipped inside, the darkness swallowed her. The stairs moaned under her weight, dust rising with each step. At the bottom, the basement smelled of cold cement and forgotten things, a graveyard of old furniture, boxes, tech cables. She dug into her sweater pocket and pulled out the item she'd hidden for days. Her old iPhone, the one Grayson thought she'd thrown away when he gave her the new secure one. He had reset everything, but he hadn't smashed the phone. He made one mistake, just one. Aubrey knelt beside an outlet, plugged it in, and waited. The screen blinked, then glowed weakly to life. 1% battery. No SIM card. Locked out of her accounts. But the camera worked, and the email app still opened in offline mode. She couldn't send a message yet, but she could prepare one. Her hands shook as she typed, "Dad, it's me. I'm in trouble. I don't know how much time I have." She added a photo, a blurry picture she'd taken earlier that week from her bedroom window. The Manhattan skyline glowed faint behind the trees. Not enough to pinpoint an address, but enough to hint at the region. Then she added one more clue. A place Grayson wouldn't think she remembered. A photo of her prenatal appointment card. The name of the Manhattan hospital printed clearly. Her father would know how to trace that. He'd find her doctor. Her doctor could become a witness. She felt a surge of hope so sharp it hurt. When the phone reached 3%, she hit send. Nothing happened. No whoosh, no confirmation. The basement signal flickered, barely a whisper. The email icon showed a spinning wheel, trying to reach a network that didn't want to let her go. "Please," she whispered. "Please work." The wheel spun, and spun, and spun. Then the basement light snapped on. Aubrey's blood turned to ice. She turned slowly. Grayson stood at the top of the stairs, one hand on the light switch, the other gripping the rail. His face wasn't angry. Anger would have been human. He looked disappointed. Quietly, devastatingly disappointed. "Aubrey," he said softly, "I told you not to come down here." She hid the phone under her leg, trying not to breathe too loudly. "I couldn't sleep. I can hear your heartbeat from the hallway." He stepped down one stair. "Do you know that? How fast it gets when you lie." Her fingers closed around the phone. The upload wheel still spun behind the screen. Another step, another. Grayson reached the bottom, voice tender as a lullaby. "Come upstairs, you'll fall. The stairs are dangerous for the baby." She forced her voice steady. "I'm fine, I just needed air." He held out his hand. Not a threat, not a demand, something worse, patience. "Aubrey, let's go." Her pulse hammered. She slipped the phone deeper under the box beside her and rose slowly. He watched her but didn't search the area. He didn't have to. He believed his control was airtight. As they ascended the stairs, Grayson brushed her back gently. "I'll check the locks. Someone must have tampered with the signal." At the top, he turned off the light again. The basement fell into darkness. Aubrey's last glance down the stairs was at the tiny, glowing wheel on her hidden phone. Because she didn't know if the message had gone out. But she knew one thing for certain now. If her father didn't get it, she might not survive long enough to try again. Samuel Lane didn't sleep the night the half-loaded email arrived. He didn't eat, didn't sit. He paced the length of his small Virginia living room like the walls were closing in on him. The corrupted message still hovered on his screen, a fragment of text, a ghost of an image, a subject line that had torn open every instinct he'd trained, buried, and ignored. "Dad, it's me." He replayed it over and over in his mind. If Aubrey wrote those words, she wasn't writing them casually. Not after 8 years of silence, not after the way they'd parted. She wouldn't contact him unless something had already gone terribly wrong, something urgent, something dangerous. By sunrise, Samuel's old FBI instincts had clicked back into place. He had a routine now, terrifyingly familiar, like slipping into an old uniform. He made coffee he didn't taste, pulled a leather notebook from a drawer, and began writing down the few pieces he had. Partial image of a skyline, possibly New York, possibly Westchester or Jersey side. Prenatal appointment card partially visible. Sender's device, unregistered IP, fragment only. Tone, distressed. He needed help. So he called the one person he trusted enough to pull back into this darkness. Elijah Brooks. A sharp, disciplined mind. Young but not naive. A rising attorney in the financial crimes division. Someone Samuel had mentored years ago. Someone he'd quietly hoped Aubrey would end up with before everything went wrong. Elijah picked up on the second ring. "Sir? Is everything? I'm sending you a file," Samuel said. "I need your eyes on it." "Of course. What am I looking at?" "My daughter." There was a beat of silence long enough to feel like a wound reopening. "I thought you hadn't spoken to her in years," Elijah said softly. "I haven't. She cut me out. I let her." Samuel swallowed. "And now she's in trouble, real trouble." Elijah's voice shifted instantly. Professional, clipped, attentive. "Send it." Samuel forwarded the corrupted message. Elijah analyzed the headers, metadata, and broken attachments in silence. After a minute, he exhaled sharply. "Sir, this email wasn't corrupted naturally. It was suppressed. By who?" "Someone with access to the sender's network, someone controlling the device." A coldness settled in Samuel's bones. "That confirms it. Do you have any reason to believe she's being held against her will?" Samuel's jaw clenched. "My daughter doesn't ask for help. Not unless she's scared." Another long pause. Then Elijah asked the question Samuel had been avoiding for years. "Where is she, sir?" Samuel swallowed. "Somewhere near New York. Pregnant, possibly with a man she was seeing. I don't know his name. I don't know where she lives. I don't know anything because I wasn't there." His voice cracked on the last word, something Elijah had never heard from him before. "Then we find her," Elijah said firmly. "How?" "I'll start with the clinic on that appointment card. That logo looks like Hudson Women's Center, Manhattan. If she had a recent checkup, there's a paper trail. Even if it's sealed, I know people." Samuel dragged a hand down his face. "Thank you." "I owe you more than one favor," Elijah said. Then added, softer, "And I cared about her too." Samuel stilled. "You never told her that." "I never got the chance." The admission hit Samuel like a punch. He wondered how different everything could have been if he hadn't driven his daughter away with his rigidness. If she'd fallen for a man like Elijah instead of whoever had her now. Elijah cleared his throat. "Sir, I'll call you in 2 hours with whatever I can find." "Don't call," Samuel said quietly. "Meet me." "Where?" Samuel looked at the photo on his fridge, 8-year-old Aubrey beaming with her disposable camera, and felt a bolt of steel go through him. "New York," he said. "Tonight." After the call ended, he pulled out a duffel bag he hadn't touched since retirement. Inside were things he was no longer supposed to have. Encrypted radio, a burner phone, field notebooks, his old Glock. Unloaded but familiar. He sat heavily on the edge of his bed. He had failed Aubrey once by being too hard on her. He would not fail her now by being too late. He zipped the bag shut, locked the house, stepped into the cold morning air with purpose that felt like breathing after years underwater. Because if his daughter was sending messages from the dark, half-broken and begging to be heard, there was only one thing a father like Samuel Lane could do: wake the lion inside him and hunt down the man who dared cage his child. Aubrey Lane had always liked doctors' offices. The soft lighting, the steady hum of air vents, the quiet professionalism. But as she sat on the exam table at Hudson Women's Center, hands trembling over her belly, she felt none of that comfort. Because this time, she wasn't alone. Grayson Hale stood beside her, one hand on her back, the other resting casually on his phone, thumb hovering over some app she didn't recognize. His presence didn't soothe her. It tightened something inside her chest. Dr. Helena Rowe, a calm woman in her mid-40s with silver-rimmed glasses, stepped into the room holding Aubrey's latest ultrasound printout. She smiled politely at Grayson, but her eyes lingered on Aubrey, longer than necessary, searching for something beneath the surface. "How have you been feeling?" Dr. Rowe asked gently. Aubrey inhaled. Tired. A little dizzy. She's been fainting, Grayson added smoothly. I caught her last night before she fell. Aubrey stiffened. That wasn't true. She had sat down on the bedroom floor because she felt anxious. But Grayson didn't differentiate between fear and illness. If she reacted to his control, he wrote it off as medical weakness. Dr. Rowe's brows drew together slightly. Is that right, Aubrey? Aubrey swallowed. I just get lightheaded sometimes. How often? The doctor pressed. Before Aubrey could answer, Grayson stepped closer. She's exaggerating her symptoms. She's emotional from the pregnancy. You know how hormones are. A beat of silence followed. Dr. Rowe set the chart down slowly. Mr. Hale, I'd like to speak with Aubrey alone for a moment. Grayson didn't move. There's no need for that. Oh, but there is, the doctor replied, tone still calm, but suddenly edged with steel. We always speak to expecting mothers alone for part of the visit. It's standard care. Aubrey's pulse fluttered. Grayson forced a smile. Of course, he said, but he held Aubrey's gaze with a warning so sharp it cut. When the door closed behind him, Dr. Rowe immediately pulled a stool close, lowering her voice. Aubrey, she said softly, are you safe at home? The question hit Aubrey like a blow. Yes, I'm fine. You hesitated. No, pregnancy is overwhelming. Dr. Rowe clasped her hands gently on Aubrey's knees. Your blood pressure is elevated. You're underweight for your week. You have visible tension marks along your shoulders, and your pupils dilate when your partner speaks. She paused. Those aren't pregnancy symptoms. Aubrey's vision blurred. Not from fear, but from the sudden crushing relief of someone finally seeing her. I can't leave, she whispered. Dr. Rowe's face didn't change, but her eyes softened. Is he restricting your movement? Aubrey nodded, tears spilling silently down her cheeks. Does he monitor your communication? Another nod. Does he physically hurt you? No, Aubrey whispered. He doesn't need to. He controls everything else. The doctor exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that carried both anger and resolve. She reached for a brochure from the counter, one about prenatal nutrition, and scribbled a number across the back. This is the clinic's direct line. But the number rings to me privately. If you ever need immediate help, call from any phone, even a stranger's, even a landline. Aubrey tucked the paper into her jacket with trembling fingers. The doctor hesitated. Aubrey, are you trying to find a way out? Her throat tightened. I'm trying to survive. Dr. Rowe nodded once, a silent vow. Then the door opened. Grayson walked in like he owned the room, like the walls bent slightly toward him. Aubrey flinched, not visibly, but enough that the doctor saw it. All good? He asked, smiling too warmly. She needs rest, Dr. Rowe said, voice professional but clipped, and less stress. We're working on that, Grayson replied. Right, sweetheart? Aubrey forced a nod. As they left the clinic, Grayson's hand locked around hers, guiding her toward the Mercedes waiting at the curb. But before the door closed, Aubrey turned and saw Dr. Rowe watching her from the lobby window, hand pressed against the glass, eyes full of unspoken warning. The car door shut. The lock clicked. And as the engine started, Aubrey clutched the brochure in her pocket, the ink smudging from her sweat, because for the first time in weeks, she had something Grayson didn't know about. A lifeline. Elijah Brooks had worked financial crimes long enough to know when something wasn't just wrong, but designed to stay hidden. And the moment he received the half-corrupted email from Samuel Lane, he recognized exactly that kind of design. He arrived at the Hudson Women's Center just after dusk. Coat collar flipped up against the November wind. The Manhattan streets hummed with taxis, horns, and the muffled roar of city life. Everything ordinary on the surface, everything dangerous underneath. The clinic lobby was closing, lights dimming. Dr. Helena Rowe was at the reception desk signing the last stack of end-of-day charts when Elijah approached. Dr. Rowe? He asked gently. She looked up, surprised. Yes? I'm Elijah Brooks, Financial Crimes Division. I'm assisting with a missing person risk case. He lowered his voice. It involves one of your patients. Her pen froze. Something flickered across her features, fear, recognition, guilt. Which patient? He slid a printed screenshot of the corrupted email across the counter. The faint outline of the appointment card was visible behind the glitch. Dr. Rowe inhaled sharply. Aubrey? Elijah nodded. I knew something was wrong, she whispered. She was terrified. Elijah's jaw flexed. Tell me everything you noticed. She led him into her office and closed the door. Aubrey showed signs of severe stress, elevated blood pressure, malnutrition, emotional suppression, classic markers of coercive control. Dr. Rowe locked eyes with him, but it wasn't just that, it was the man with her. "Grayson Hale?" Elijah asked. Dr. Rowe stiffened. He never left her side, not for a second. His demeanor was contained, too contained, and she flinched whenever he spoke. Elijah's stomach twisted. Did she say he was hurting her? She didn't have to. Trauma has a language. The doctor hesitated, then said quietly, "I gave her a private number. I didn't know if she'd ever get to use it." Elijah's fingers curled into fists. "He's not just controlling her. I think he's holding her somewhere with restricted access." Dr. Rowe's voice dropped. "Then she's running out of time. She's close to delivery. If he isolates her further, her life and the baby's could be in danger." He already knew that. What he didn't know was how deep the danger went. He opened his laptop on her desk and pulled up a file Samuel had sent, a list of suspicious offshore patterns traced to an anonymous tech network. "Do you recognize any of this?" he asked. Dr. Rowe leaned forward, scanning the encrypted transactions. "No, but wait." She tapped one line. "This company paid for Aubrey's prenatal care." Elijah narrowed his eyes. "That's not unusual." "It is," she said, "if the company is based in the Cayman Islands." He stared at her. "And if the name matches an account flagged in our department's sealed investigation," he said slowly. Dr. Rowe blinked. "You know this organization?" "I've been chasing it for 4 years," Elijah breathed. "A data laundering syndicate operating behind multiple tech fronts. We've identified 6 shell corporations, never knew who was running the digital infrastructure." She swallowed. "And now you think it's him." "I know it's him." Elijah clicked another tab, revealing a surveillance photo. "Grayson Hale presents himself as an innovator, but he's a trafficker of information, someone who knows how to disappear people through digital erasure." "Disappear?" Dr. Rowe whispered. Elijah nodded grimly. "He doesn't need to hurt victims physically. He isolates them digitally first, cuts their communication, alters records, seals hospital access, makes it look like they never reached out." Dr. Rowe's hand shook. "Then Aubrey's pregnancy is leverage," Elijah finished quietly. "Pregnant victims are harder to run, easier to control." He closed the laptop, breath tight. "I need her address, any clue, anything she might have said." Dr. Rowe hesitated, then pulled a chart from the drawer. She mentioned a long driveway, trees surrounding the house, and she said she could faintly see Manhattan lights at night, very faint. Elijah's eyes sharpened. "That narrows it. Westchester foothills maybe, or Jersey Highlands." Dr. Rowe touched his arm. "Find her," he nodded once, like a vow. As he stepped out into the cold night, Elijah dialed Samuel's burner phone. "Sir, we have confirmation," he said. "Where is she?" Samuel asked, voice cracking through static. "Somewhere just outside Manhattan," Elijah exhaled. "And she's not just with the wrong man, she's trapped inside the heart of a syndicate we've been hunting for years." A beat of heavy silence followed. Then Samuel's voice dropped into an old tone, a tone forged from decade-old battlefields. "Then God help the man who took her." Elijah adjusted his coat, scanning the skyline. Because the hunt had officially begun, and this time they weren't chasing a criminal. They were chasing a ghost who had stolen a woman they both cared about. Elijah Brooks drove through the lower edge of Westchester with a knot tightening in his chest, the kind he hadn't felt since his first major case. This wasn't just a missing person risk anymore. This was a convergence. Aubrey's distress, Grayson Hale's shadowy finances, and a digital ghost network that had evaded the FBI for years. A combination like that didn't happen by accident. It was orchestrated. He pulled into a small, unmarked parking garage and rode the elevator up to the floor his division used for quiet work, the kind of investigations that didn't officially exist. When the doors opened, only one person was there. His supervisor, Special Agent Dana Whitlock. Her sharp eyes landed on him immediately. "You're not scheduled today?" "I know," he said, setting his laptop on the table. "But I have something." She watched him carefully as he opened file after file, shell corporations, encrypted transactions, financial cliffs that connected and disconnected like a spider building multiple webs at once. "These accounts," he explained, "aren't independent. They're tethered to encrypted networks that route through CyberShield servers. The shell companies show patterns identical to the Hale structure." Whitlock raised a brow. Grayson Hale, the tech golden boy? Golden on the outside, Elijah replied. But the offshore accounts funding his company? They belong to a criminal syndicate we've had on our watch list for years. We never knew who ran the infrastructure. So you think it's him? I think it's bigger, Elijah said. I think Hale is the digital spine of the entire operation. Whitlock's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened around a folder. And this ties into your missing person inquiry? Elijah swallowed. Yes, the victim is Aubrey Lane. Whitlock froze. Samuel Lane's daughter? Yes. Does he know? He knows she reached out, Elijah admitted, barely, but he doesn't know he's walking into a minefield. Whitlock paced slowly, her heels clicking like a countdown. Hale has powerful friends, powerful protection. If he's holding her, getting her out could ignite a federal war. Elijah's jaw clenched. Then it's a war we need to start. She's pregnant, she's isolated, and Hale is spiraling. His accounts are under review, and he knows it. Men like him don't react well when their foundation cracks. Whitlock stopped pacing. Meaning? Elijah locked eyes with her. Meaning, if we don't move soon, he will eliminate liabilities, including her. For the first time, something flickered in her expression. Fear or anger, he couldn't tell. She lifted a thin silver USB from her desk drawer, set it in front of him. This contains everything we have on Hale's shell companies. It's thin, but it's a start. Thank you. Don't thank me, she cut in. I shouldn't be giving this to you. Elijah exhaled. Then why are you? Because Samuel Lane saved my brother's life in 2008, Whitlock said quietly. And because pregnant women don't belong in cages. She stepped closer, voice low. Find her. But remember, if Hale realizes you're coming, he'll burn the entire network to the ground, and he will not hesitate to take her with it. Elijah pocketed the USB, nodding. Then we'll move before he knows we're behind him. But he didn't leave the building. Not yet. Because there was one more thing he needed, confirmation that Hale was unraveling. He opened an encrypted link to Wall Street monitoring logs, scanned transactions, checked timestamps, and there it was, exactly what he feared. A massive withdrawal from Hale's main account, followed by a sudden freeze, followed by a flagged alert from SEC investigators. Hale was being cornered from all sides. Elijah's heartbeat kicked into a sprint. If Hale felt threatened financially, he would retreat to the one place he controlled absolutely, his home. And if Aubrey was inside when he snapped, he grabbed his coat, sprinting for the elevator, dialing Samuel as he ran. Sir? It's Elijah. We have movement. Samuel's voice was tense. What kind? Hale's accounts are collapsing. He's going to panic. Elijah's breath came fast. And panicked men with power don't run, they lock down. He could almost hear Samuel's pulse through the line. We're out of time, Elijah said. He reached the garage, keys shaking in his hand. We need to find Aubrey now, before Grayson Hale decides she's the liability he has to erase. The storm rolled into Westchester like a living thing, howling through the trees, rattling the eaves, cracking branches against Grayson Hale's isolated house. Aubrey Lane sat curled at the edge of the couch, arms wrapped around her belly, each thunderclap echoing through her ribs like a warning. Storms usually comforted her. Not this one. Not tonight. Her body felt wrong, heavy in a way that wasn't just pregnancy. Her chest tightened, her breath fluttered, and her vision blurred at the edges. She'd had dizzy spells before, but this was sharper, more dangerous. Grayson, she whispered, I feel weird. I think something's wrong. He didn't even look up from the laptop he'd been glued to since the SEC alert hit his inbox earlier. His eyes were bloodshot, jaw ticking in that rhythm she'd learned to fear. You're dehydrated, he said flatly. Drink water. It's not that, she insisted, clutching her stomach as a tightening wave rippled through her. Please, I need to go to the hospital. That got his attention, but not in the way she hoped. Grayson slowly closed the laptop, stood and walked toward her. Thunder rumbled behind him like a drum roll for something terrible. You're not going to a hospital, he said softly. Not now. Not when I'm being targeted. She blinked. Targeted? He crouched in front of her, brushing hair from her face. The tenderness looked soft, sounded soft, but it wasn't soft. It was calculated. CyberShield has been compromised. Someone's trying to bring down everything I built, so I need you calm. I need you here. He tapped his temple. Focused. On us. Grayson, she whispered. I'm having contractions. He tilted his head, studying her like a machine scanning data. "No," he said. "No, you're not. They're too early. You're just reacting to my stress. You do that sometimes." A crack of lightning lit the room. For a moment, the whole house flickered. The smart locks beeped, and Aubrey heard something she hadn't heard in weeks: silence in the system. A glitch. She swallowed hard. The storm is affecting the power. If the grid goes out, the locks. "I know," Grayson snapped. Another contraction hit, sharper this time. She gripped the couch. "Please," she begged. "The baby, I don't feel right." He stood so fast the coffee table shook, pacing, breathing heavy, muttering. She couldn't hear every word, but she caught pieces. "They're closing in. Someone tipped them off. Can't leave her alone. Not safe for me to be seen." Her heart pounded. Not safe for me. He wasn't even thinking about her anymore. Not the baby. Only himself. "Grayson," she said again, voice cracking. "I need medical help." He finally stopped pacing and turned to her, his face disturbingly calm. "I'll call a private medic. Someone discreet." "No," she cried. "Call an ambulance." His eyes hardened. "Absolutely not." Another lightning flash streaked across the windows, and with it something else. A pair of headlights in the distance, faint, nearly hidden by the trees. Then gone. Aubrey's heartbeat thudded. She didn't know who it was, but the sight of those lights made a spark of hope flicker in her chest. Grayson didn't notice. He was too busy tearing through desk drawers for something. Documents, passports, cash, she couldn't tell. Then the house shuddered. A loud boom, followed by the sharp crackle of something electrical failing. The lights flickered once, twice, then went dark, complete silence. A beat later, the emergency backup system kicked in with a dull hum, flooding only half the house with dim orange light. But the smart locks, they didn't hum, they stayed dark. Aubrey's pulse surged. The system was down. She stood, slowly, painfully. "Grayson, the doors." He spun toward the panel, tapped it. No response. The screen was dead. He exhaled sharply. "It's just temporary," but fear flickered behind his eyes. Real fear. He grabbed her wrist. "Firm, urgent. Sit. Do not move. I need to check the generator." He let go and stormed toward the back of the house. Aubrey's knees buckled, but she steadied herself. She glanced at the front door. No red ring, no green ring, nothing. For the first time in months, the door wasn't locked. Something inside her rose. Panic, hope, adrenaline. She took one step toward the entryway, then another. Her hand reached for the handle. The wind slammed against the house. Branches scraped the siding. Somewhere outside, a car engine idled low, and through the storm she thought she heard something else. A man's voice. Deep, familiar, calling her name. Aubrey froze. No, it couldn't be. But as thunder crashed, she heard it again, clearer this time. Samuel Lane was out there in the storm, calling for the daughter he had finally found. Samuel Lane had tracked fugitives across deserts, mountains, and foreign cities where no one spoke his language, but nothing compared to the cold terror that gripped him as he stood beneath the pounding Westchester storm, staring up at Grayson Hale's dark, looming house. He knew she was inside. He could feel her fear in his bones. Thunder cracked overhead, rain soaked through his coat. But Samuel didn't move, except to scan the windows with a tactical precision he hadn't needed in years. One window glowed faintly, emergency backup lighting, a failure in the grid, a vulnerability. He stepped closer, calling out again, voice cutting through the wind like a blade. Aubrey. Inside, behind that door, Aubrey lifted her head. He could sense it, but he didn't see the shadow that moved behind him, not until it was too late. A black SUV crept forward through the trees, engine barely audible over the storm. It had no headlights, no plates, the same model Elijah had warned him the syndicate used for surveillance. Samuel pivoted too slow, age catching up. A figure jumped out, hooded and armed with a stun baton. Before Samuel could reach for his own weapon, a sharp jolt ripped through his body. His knees buckled, slamming onto the wet gravel. Pain spread like fire as he struggled to breathe. A voice hissed, "Not so fast, Agent Lane." A boot pressed between his shoulder blades. "Should have stayed retired." The man taunted. Samuel gritted his teeth, fighting the static haze in his brain. "You touch my daughter," he growled, "and I will bury every last one of you." The man laughed coldly. "Your daughter already belongs to someone." The words sliced deeper than the stun baton. Another jolt burned through him, and the world blurred. But Samuel Lane didn't stay down. He waited, counted, timed the pain. When the man lowered his guard for a second to check his radio, Samuel twisted violently, kicking out with the strength of a man fueled by pure primal fear. The attacker stumbled. Samuel lunged, grabbing the baton and slamming the man's wrist into the ground until it cracked. The man screamed. Samuel didn't stop, not until the baton flew free. He grabbed the device, rose with effort, every muscle shaking, and pressed the baton to the man's throat. "Where is she?" But the man only grinned, his mouth stained with blood. "You're too late, old man. Hale's got plans for her." Before Samuel could press the baton harder, the SUV's passenger door flung open, another masked man stepping out. Samuel's instincts fired. He had seconds at most. He shoved the injured man aside and sprinted into the tree line, lightning illuminating his path. He didn't stop, didn't look back. The SUV's tires screeched, men yelling over the thunder. He ducked behind a fallen oak, gasping, ears ringing. They were here, the syndicate, the very people Hale supplied with data, power, and silence. And they wanted Aubrey alive. Or dead. He didn't know which was worse. He pulled out his burner phone with shaking fingers and dialed Elijah. The call connected instantly. "Sir?" Elijah's voice was tight, urgent. "I'm 20 minutes away." "Make it 10, Samuel rasped. "They found me." "Who?" "The same men backing Hale." Samuel pressed a hand to his ribs. Pain flared. "They're guarding the property. They know she's trying to get out." Elijah cursed under his breath. "Sir, listen to me. Don't engage alone. I'm close. Wait for me." Samuel breathed hard, watching Hale's house glow and flicker through the storm. "She's in there. I heard her. She tried the door." "Sir, I won't let her lose another minute." He hung up, because Samuel Lane didn't wait. Not when it came to his daughter. He stepped out from behind the tree just as lightning tore open the sky, revealing Hale's silhouette at the back of the house, moving fast, frantic, storming toward the generator. Samuel froze. Hale had no idea the locks were down, no idea Aubrey was seconds from escaping, no idea Samuel was already here. Samuel moved closer, ignoring the rain stinging his face. He could hear Hale's voice now, low, frantic, angry. "Come on, damn it, restore the system, restore it." Inside the house, Aubrey reached for the handle. Outside, Samuel stepped toward the front porch, and behind the trees unseen, the syndicate men repositioned. Storm, father, daughter, predator, all converging on the same moment. And as Aubrey's fingers brushed the door handle, Samuel realized the most terrifying truth. If he reached her now, he might be walking both of them straight into a kill zone. Aubrey Lane had spent months convincing herself she could endure Grayson Hale's world if she stayed quiet enough, small enough, careful enough. But after the storm, after the contraction that nearly dropped her to her knees, after the glimpse, just a glimpse, of what might have been her father's voice outside, she no longer had the strength to lie to herself. Something had to change. She just didn't know the price yet. When the power finally returned hours later, Grayson acted like nothing had happened. He emerged from the basement with his hair damp from rain, his jaw tight and his shirt clinging to him. He looked upset, but not with her, with the world. "Dinner," he said shortly. "You need calories, and we need to talk." Aubrey's chest tightened. "Grayson, I really think we should." He cut her off. "Sit." The single word chilled her. She obeyed, lowering herself into one of the high-backed chairs at the long dining table. Too large, too elegant for two people trapped in a house. Grayson moved like a man performing a ritual. He lit 2 candles. He plated salmon, asparagus, and quinoa. He poured sparkling water into crystal glasses. Everything meticulous, everything quiet. When he finally sat across from her, the only sound was the soft tap of rain still dripping from the gutters. He watched her for a long moment, studying her, evaluating her, calculating her. "You scared me today," he said. Aubrey stared at her plate. "I had a contraction. You tried to leave." Her breath caught. "I needed air." "You needed control," he corrected. He leaned back, voice calm, too calm. "But control is not your responsibility. It's mine." She looked up, meeting his eyes. Dark, steady, unblinking. The eyes of a man who believed his version of love was law. "Your father is dangerous," he continued. "The people coming after me? Even more dangerous. I am the only safe place for you." Aubrey swallowed. "I heard someone outside during the storm." His jaw twitched. "There was no one." "I heard." "You heard wind," he said sharply. "You're stressed and pregnant and imagining threats that aren't there." She pressed her palms to her belly. "And Swally, please, please listen to me. Something is wrong, with me, with the baby. I need to see Dr. Rowe. His face softened like a mask slipping into place. You'll see her soon, he promised. After we leave here. Her blood ran cold. Leave? Go where? A place where no one can interfere again, he said. A secure chalet upstate. They can't track us there. No surveillance, no neighbors, no father trying to turn you against me. Aubrey felt the world tilt. A chalet. Secluded. Remote. No witnesses. Grayson, she whispered, I can't go there. You can, he said gently, and you will, because I'm doing what's best for our family. Family. The word used like shackles. Aubrey's throat tightened. She forced herself to sound calm, pliable. Can I at least pack my things? His gaze sharpened as he studied her expression. Then he nodded. Yes, but only essentials. He stood abruptly, clearing plates before she even touched her fork. We leave before sunrise. I'll handle the rest. As he walked into the kitchen, Aubrey exhaled shakily. Her vision pulsed at the edges. A warm ache spread across her abdomen, another contraction, sharper, lower. Not now, not yet. She pushed herself up, gripping the chair for balance. She needed a plan. She needed time. She needed. The front porch light flicked on. She froze. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, not Grayson's. He was still in the kitchen. The sound came again, closer, heavier. Aubrey backed away from the door, heart slamming against her ribs. Then, a shadow moved past the frosted glass. Her breath hitched. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her knees wobbled, because she knew the shape of that shadow, knew the way the shoulders tilted, knew the size, the stance, the presence. Her father, Samuel Lane. He was right there, on the other side of the door. She opened her mouth to call out, but Grayson stepped back into the dining room carrying a knife from the kitchen, his expression unreadable. Did you hear something? He asked. Aubrey choked on her breath. Because it sounded. Grayson continued slowly, eyes narrowing toward the front entrance. Like someone thinks they can take you from me. And Aubrey realized her father wasn't the only one who had found the house tonight. So had Grayson, and he intended to reach her first. Elijah Brooks hadn't driven this recklessly since law school, when he'd been young enough to believe he was invincible. Tonight, he wasn't thinking about laws or speed limits. He was thinking about the tremor in Samuel Lane's voice when he said, "They found me." The storm had thinned to a cold mist, but the roads were slick, reflecting headlights like broken glass. Elijah's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he turned into the wooded stretch leading to Grayson Hale's isolated property. He wasn't just racing toward a woman he cared about. He was racing toward a man he had spent 4 years trying to expose. He spotted Samuel hunched behind a fallen tree just off the driveway, breath visible in the cold air. Elijah slammed the brakes, rushed out, and knelt beside him. "Sir, God, what happened?" Samuel pushed himself upright, grimacing. "2 men jumped me. Hale's people. They're guarding the perimeter." Elijah's stomach knotted. "Are you hurt? Not enough to stop me." Samuel wiped blood from his lip. His gaze flicked toward the house, lit now only by emergency glow. "She's inside." Elijah swallowed hard. "Then we move, but carefully. Hale's panicking. He'll be unpredictable." "He was already unpredictable," Samuel muttered. "Now he's dangerous." Elijah reached into his coat and pulled out a small device, a signal jammer. "This will scramble any outgoing alerts from Hale's security system for 5 minutes. It's all we'll get." Samuel nodded. 5 minutes is enough. They crouched low, moving between trees toward the back of the house. Branches snapped under their boots. The hum of a backup generator buzzed faintly. As they neared the porch, Elijah grabbed Samuel's arm. "Wait." Through the fogged window, they saw Aubrey, standing frozen in the dining room, one hand gripping the table, the other instinctively on her stomach. Her eyes were locked on something, someone. Grayson Hale stepped into the frame, a kitchen knife glinting in his hand. Elijah's pulse crashed in his ears. "We're out of time." "Then we go in," Samuel said. Before Elijah could respond, a soft rustle in the bushes made both men turn. A shadow moved, another guard scanning the property with a flashlight. Elijah cursed under his breath. "If he sees us." "I'll handle him," Samuel murmured. Before Elijah could stop him, Samuel darted toward the guard with a silent, practiced efficiency that belonged to a past life. The guard turned just in time to see a fist collide with his jaw. His flashlight hit the ground with a muffled thud. Elijah dragged the unconscious man into the trees, chest heaving. "Sir, we can't keep doing this without backup." Backup takes hours, Samuel replied. Aubrey doesn't have hours. Elijah looked at the house, at the dim light, at the silhouette of a man holding a knife, at the woman he had once dreamed of confessing his feelings to. I'm going through the kitchen, Elijah said. There's a side door that leads into the pantry. If it's locked, I'll break it. I'll take the front, Samuel said quietly. He'll expect someone to enter there. Good. Let him look at me and not at her. They shared a look, tense, grim, united. Elijah tapped the jammer. 5 minutes. Samuel nodded. 5 minutes. As they separated, the cold bit through Elijah's coat, adrenaline sharpening his focus. He crept toward the side of the house, stepping lightly, watching for alarms he knew might still function even under the failing system. He reached the side door, tested the handle. Locked. He tilted his head, listening. Hale's voice drifted from the dining room, too low to catch words, but sharp enough to slice through the quiet. Aubrey's voice followed, soft, panicked, trembling. Elijah's breath shook. He braced his shoulder. 3, 2, 1. The wooden frame cracked as he slammed into it, splinters flying. Inside, lights flickered. Grayson whipped his head toward the noise. Aubrey gasped. Samuel shouted her name from the front door. Chaos erupted. Hale tightened his grip on the knife. Elijah reached for her. Everything converged, because this was the moment everything would break. The house, the lies, the control. And maybe, if they were lucky, the chain that had held Aubrey captive for far too long. The world didn't explode all at once. It shattered slowly, sound by sound, breath by breath, not heartbeat by heartbeat. The pantry door crashed inward. Aubrey flinched. Grayson spun toward the noise, knife raised, and in that single second, everything in the house came unglued. Elijah Brooks stumbled through the splintered doorway, shoulder bleeding from the impact, but eyes locked on Aubrey with fierce desperation. Aubrey, don't move, he said. Her breath hitched. Elijah? Grayson snapped his head toward her. The sound of her saying another man's name, that man's name, sent something volcanic ripping through him. Of course, Grayson whispered, voice trembling. It's you. He turned the knife toward Elijah. But before he could lunge, Samuel Lane burst through the front entry with the force of a man who'd waited 8 years to reach his child. Rainwater streamed off his coat, mixing with blood from the earlier attack, but he didn't feel any of it. Aubrey, he yelled, scanning the room. Aubrey choked on a sob. Grayson's eyes went wild. No, he snarled, you don't get to take her from... Put the knife down. Samuel barked, voice booming like thunder, gun raised in steady hands. But Grayson didn't drop it. He laughed, a short, broken sound. You think you can walk in here and dictate what happens? She's mine. I built a life for her. I protected her. You imprisoned her, Elijah said sharply, and we have evidence, enough to bury you and every man backing you. Grayson's pupils constricted. You know nothing? He took a step toward Aubrey. Samuel snapped. Grayson, don't you touch her. Another step. Elijah shifted, blocking Grayson's path. She's done living under your control. Grayson's face twisted. She doesn't need you. He pointed the knife at Elijah. She chose me. No, Aubrey whispered, tears spilling freely now. I survived you. The words froze Grayson mid-step, just long enough. Another contraction slammed through her, sharper this time, doubling her over with a cry she couldn't contain. Grayson's gaze snapped to her belly, panic and obsession colliding. Aubrey, sweetheart, you're stressing the baby. You need to come with me, now, before. You are not taking her anywhere, Samuel roared. For God's sake, she needs a hospital, Elijah added. Grayson shook his head violently. No, hospitals ask questions. Then he grabbed her arm. Aubrey screamed. Elijah lunged. Samuel cocked the gun. Grayson dragged her closer, knife trembling in his other hand. Everyone stop. She's mine. That baby is mine. Aubrey struggled, voice cracked with pain. Let me go, Grayson, please, let go. For the first time she saw it. Not love, not protection, possession. His grip tightened. You're not thinking clearly, Elijah warned, hands raised. You hurt her and the syndicate will abandon you. The feds will tear everything down. You'll lose everything you claim you're protecting. Grayson's breath came in wild bursts. He looked at Aubrey, not lovingly but desperately, like a drowning man clinging to the only thing keeping him afloat. I did all this for us, he said, voice cracking. You were supposed to trust me. Aubrey met his eyes through tears. Then why did you take away the one thing I needed most? What? He demanded. Freedom. He hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. It was enough. Samuel surged forward and wrenched Aubrey from his grip. She stumbled into Elijah's arms as Grayson slashed blindly, the knife grazing fabric, not skin. "Get them out!" Samuel shouted. Elijah grabbed Aubrey, supporting her weight as another contraction tore through her. She screamed into his shoulder. "We need an ambulance," Elijah said urgently. "No time," Samuel growled. "Get her to the car, go!" Elijah half-dragged, half-carried Aubrey toward the back door. Grayson roared, "Aubrey!" and charged after them. But Samuel slammed him into the wall, fist connecting with Grayson's jaw, fury flooding years of regret. "You don't get to say her name," Samuel spat. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the two men locked in a brutal struggle. Aubrey sobbed, clutching Elijah's shirt. "Dad, he's right behind us. Go!" Elijah urged. Outside, the storm surged back with a violent gust. Aubrey stumbled across the porch, her breath sharp, her vision blurring as pain twisted deep in her core. "Elijah?" She gasped. "Something's wrong. Something's really wrong." He tightened his grip on her waist. "I've got you, I promise." Behind them, inside the house, a crash, a shout, Samuel's voice roaring with primal rage, and Aubrey knew. If Samuel lost that fight, none of them were getting out alive. Cold rain hit Aubrey's face like needles as Elijah supported her down the back steps, her breath catching with every step. The contractions were coming too fast now, sharp, wrenching, deeper than anything she'd felt before. Not Braxton Hicks, not stress, real labor, early, dangerous, and she was too weak to run on her own. "Elijah," she gasped, fingers digging into his coat. "I don't think I can." "Yes, you can." His voice trembled with urgency, but his arms were steady around her. "I'm getting you out of here. I swear it." Behind them, the house erupted with violence. Wood cracking, glass shattering, Samuel shouting, Grayson snarling like an animal cornered in his den. Every sound burned through Aubrey's nerves. "Dad," she whimpered, twisting toward the noise. Elijah tightened his hold, forcing her to move. "He can handle himself. Right now, you and the baby come first." Another contraction seized her. She screamed, knees buckling. Elijah caught her before she hit the ground, lowering her carefully beside a garden wall. "It hurts. Oh God, Elijah, it hurts." "I know," he whispered, brushing wet hair from her face. "Just breathe. Look at me." Lightning lit the backyard, the stone pathway, the heavy trees, the black SUV parked near the side gate. A guard lay unconscious nearby. Samuel's work. "Elijah," she choked. "The baby's coming." He swallowed hard, nodding once. "I'll get you to the car, then the hospital." "But the men," she gasped. "I'll handle them." He stood, scanning the perimeter. That's when he saw them. Two masked figures moving through the trees, closing in fast, weapons drawn. His blood ran cold. They weren't coming for him. They were coming for her. One raised a radio. Elijah couldn't hear the words, but he recognized the formation instantly. Extraction. They weren't here to help Grayson. They were here to collect what he promised them. Aubrey's baby. Adrenaline surged through Elijah. He dropped to one knee beside her. "Listen to me," he whispered urgently. "No matter what happens, keep your head down. Do not make a sound." Aubrey blinked in terror. "Elijah?" He pressed a shaking finger to her lips. "I won't let them touch you, I promise." He rose, stepping into the rain, planting himself between her and the men closing in. "Hey!" he shouted. The two shadows froze, and then everything broke open at once. The back door slammed open. Grayson staggered onto the porch, face bloodied, expression feral. His voice cut through the storm like a whip. "Don't touch her!" The masked men turned their weapons toward him. "Stand down, Hale. She's priority." "She's mine!" he roared. He charged them with reckless fury. The first guard fired. Grayson dropped to one knee, but the bullet only grazed his arm. Elijah lunged, tackling the second guard before he could grab Aubrey. They hit the ground hard, rolling through mud and leaves. The guard swung wildly, but Elijah slammed his elbow into the man's jaw, stunning him. Behind them, Grayson clawed at the other guard like he had nothing left to lose, because truly, he didn't. Aubrey crawled backward, tears mixing with rain, unable to stand. Her breath came in ragged sobs. "Stop, please stop." And suddenly, the world went silent. Samuel Lane stepped into the yard, soaking wet, eyes blazing through the storm. He held Grayson's dropped gun steady in both hands. Everyone freeze. Even the storm seemed to hesitate. One guard tried to reach for his weapon. Samuel fired, a warning shot, straight into the dirt beside the man's hand. "I said freeze," Samuel growled. His voice was death and authority and fatherhood all at once. Aubrey burst into tears. "Dad, please." Please, we need help. Samuel's face cracked, not with fear but with urgency. Aubrey, sweetheart, I see you. I've got you. Another contraction ripped through her. She screamed. Elijah rolled off the downed guard and crawled to her side. She's in active labor, he told Samuel. We need to get out of here now. Samuel's jaw tightened. He kept the gun trained on the men while stepping toward them slowly, shielding Aubrey with his body. Grayson staggered to his feet, clutching his bleeding arm. His voice was a broken rasp. You're not taking her. Samuel snapped. Son, it's over. Walk away. Grayson shook his head violently. Never. He lunged. Samuel fired. The bullet tore into Grayson's leg, dropping him instantly. He screamed in rage, not pain, clawing at the earth like he could drag himself toward her. Aubrey sobbed as Elijah lifted her into his arms. Dad, Elijah, I can't. Yes, you can, Elijah whispered fiercely, holding her tight. We're almost out. Samuel backed toward the SUV, gun steady, eyes never leaving the threat. Behind them, Grayson shrieked her name, but he couldn't reach her now. For the first time, Aubrey realized she was leaving that house, leaving him, leaving captivity. But she also realized something else. The baby was coming fast, and she might not make it to the hospital in time. Elijah Brooks had never driven so fast in his life. The SUV fishtailed on the slick road, wipers struggling against sheets of rain, headlights cutting only a thin blade of visibility through the darkness. In the back seat, Aubrey held her stomach with both hands, breath coming in sharp, panicked cries. It's too soon, she sobbed. Elijah, it's too soon. Something's wrong. I know, he said, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Just hold on. We're almost to the main road. Beside her, Samuel Lane held her shoulders, voice trembling despite all his training. Sweetheart, look at me. Breathe with me. Slow it down. In through your nose, out through your mouth. But Aubrey couldn't slow anything. Not the pain, not the terror, not the contractions tearing through her one after another. Her voice cracked. Dad, I can't. Dad, I can't. You can, Samuel whispered, brushing damp hair from her forehead. You're gonna make it. You hear me? You're gonna make it. Another contraction seized her with brutal force. She screamed, raw, primal, shaking. Elijah's foot slammed the accelerator. Hold on back there. But even as he said it, he knew. Samuel knew. Aubrey knew. They wouldn't make it to the hospital. Dad? Aubrey gasped, gripping his arm with surprising strength. Something's wrong. It burns. It feels like pressure. I can't. Samuel's heart dropped. He delivered babies in the field during hostage crises, natural disasters, even under gunfire. He recognized the signs instantly. Aubrey. His voice softened into something steady, controlled. Listen to me. You are going into full labor. Her eyes widened. No, I can't. Yes, you can, and you will, right here. No, she cried, shaking her head. This isn't safe. I'm not ready. You don't have to be ready, he whispered. You just have to do it. Elijah's voice cracked from the front seat. Tell me what you need. Anything. Samuel took a breath. We need to pull over. Now. Elijah's hands tightened on the wheel. Sir, these men could still be following us. We don't have a choice, Samuel snapped. The baby is coming right now. Elijah swore under his breath, scanning the shoulder of the road. Finally, he spotted a narrow clearing just off the highway, sheltered by trees. He jerked the wheel, skidding to a halt. Rain hammered the roof. Wind rocked the car. The world outside looked like a storm that wanted to swallow them whole. Inside the SUV, a different storm raged. Samuel knelt on the floor, bracing Aubrey's back with his arms. Okay, sweetheart, I need you to lie back. Elijah, tilt the seat. Elijah slammed the passenger seat forward, jumped to the back, and helped ease Aubrey down. She cried out, long, desperate, terrified. Dad, it hurts so much. I know, Samuel pressed his forehead to hers. But I'm here, I'm right here. You're not doing this alone. Lightning split the sky. A contraction hit with force that nearly lifted her off the seat. Aubrey, push, Samuel ordered. I can't. Yes, you can, Elijah said fiercely, gripping her hand. You're the strongest woman I've ever known. You can do this. She screamed again as another wave tore through her. Samuel guided, coached, breathed with her. Elijah held her steady, letting her crush his fingers without a single flinch. Minutes stretched like hours. Pain blurred into fear. Fear blurred into instinct. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, life fought its way into the world. One more push, Samuel urged. Come on, sweetheart, for the baby, for yourself. Aubrey sobbed. You can, he shouted over the thunder. Aubrey screamed, a sound born from agony and survival and the final breaking of every chain that ever held her. Then, a cry, tiny, piercing, alive. Samuel's hands trembled as he lifted the newborn, wrapping the baby against his chest with Elijah's coat. "It's a girl," he whispered, voice cracking. "A beautiful baby girl." Aubrey collapsed backwards, sobbing in relief. "Let me see, please." Elijah leaned down, kissing her forehead. "You did it. You did it, Aubrey. She's perfect." Samuel placed the baby gently into her arms. Aubrey held her daughter with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face. "I love you," she whispered to the tiny, wriggling life against her chest. "I love you so, so much." For the first time in months, Aubrey felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Freedom. She closed her eyes, breathing in her daughter's soft cry, and didn't notice the dark SUV that had pulled onto the road behind them. Didn't see the headlights dim. Didn't hear the car door open. But Samuel did. His face hardened as he reached for the gun at his hip. Because this birth was a miracle, and he wasn't about to let anyone take it away from her. Rain pounded the SUV roof like a warning drum as Samuel Lane turned toward the dark silhouette stepping from the vehicle behind them. The storm swallowed most of the figure's features, but the intent was unmistakable. This man wasn't here by accident. Elijah saw Samuel's body tense. "Sir?" "Get them down," Samuel whispered, eyes locked ahead. "Now." Elijah immediately pulled Aubrey lower in the back seat, shielding both mother and child with his body. Aubrey clutched her newborn tighter, heart racing. "Dad, what's happening?" "It's all right, sweetheart," Samuel murmured, though his voice carried the edge of an old warrior stepping back into a battlefield. "No one's taking you. Not now. Not ever again." The stranger approached slowly, hands raised, not in surrender, but in negotiation. "Agent Lane," he called over the wind, "this isn't what you think." Samuel stepped out into the rain, gun drawn. "Then tell me exactly what it is." The man stopped a few feet away. His coat flapped violently, rain streaking across a face with cold, hollow eyes. "Hale made promises. You interfered. We're here to clean up the mess." Samuel's jaw flexed. "You're not leaving with her." The man smirked. "We don't need her anymore." The implication struck Samuel like a blow. Then what? Before he finished, the man reached inside his coat, not for a weapon, but for a detonator. Samuel's blood froze. "Elijah!" he shouted. "Drive now." Elijah didn't hesitate. He threw himself into the driver's seat, slamming the door. "Hold on!" The engine roared. Tires screamed against wet pavement. The SUV shot forward just as Samuel dove inside, pulling the door shut behind him. A blinding flash tore through the storm as the explosion erupted behind them, fire swallowing the figure, the road, the trees. The shockwave slammed into the SUV, rocking it violently. Aubrey screamed, curling around her newborn. Elijah fought the wheel. Come on, hold it." The SUV fishtailed, swerved, then finally straightened. No one breathed for several seconds. Then the baby cried, tiny, frantic, alive. Aubrey sobbed in relief, kissing the top of her daughter's head. "You're okay. You're okay." Samuel exhaled shakily. That wasn't random. Hale's syndicate cut ties the second he was compromised. They came to erase evidence, all of it. Elijah tightened his grip on the wheel. Meaning they were going to kill her. "And him," Samuel added. "Loose ends get tied." The car sped toward the nearest hospital, sirens growing faint in the distance, other cars responding to the explosion. For the first time since arriving in New York, Samuel allowed his shoulders to sag. Aubrey whispered, "Dad, thank you." He looked over, eyes softening. "I should have protected you a long time ago. I'm here now. I'm not leaving again." Elijah slowed the car as city lights came into view, glowing warm through the thinning rain. Aubrey reached toward him weakly. "Elijah, thank you for not giving up on me." Elijah swallowed hard, his voice low. "There was never a world where I would." The hospital emergency entrance flooded with nurses the moment they pulled up. Aubrey and the baby were rushed inside. Samuel followed closely, trembling from cold and adrenaline. Hours passed, doctors worked. Aubrey drifted in and out of consciousness. The baby, tiny but strong, was stabilized. Finally, just before dawn, Elijah and Samuel were allowed into her recovery room. Aubrey lay propped up, hair messy, face pale, but alive. In her arms, her daughter slept peacefully. Samuel stepped forward first. "She's perfect," he whispered. Aubrey smiled weakly. "Her name's Grace." Elijah blinked, emotion tightening his throat. "Grace Lane," he murmured. "Beautiful." A nurse entered quietly. "The police have Hale in custody. He's stable, but he won't be walking anywhere for a long time." Aubrey exhaled, for the first time, truly free. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Samuel brushed her cheek. "Now, you get a life, a real one no one controls." Elijah stepped closer. "And you won't do it alone." Aubrey looked between them, her father steady again after years of distance, and Elijah whose quiet devotion had never dimmed. For the first time in months, the future didn't terrify her, it awaited her. She held her daughter closer, tears shining in her eyes. "I survived," she whispered, "and she will grow up free." Outside, the storm broke, sunlight rose, and somewhere in a prison cell, Grayson Hale screamed for a woman who would never come back. Aubrey Lane had won, and for the first time she felt the miracle of a life that finally belonged to her. And just like that, our story closes its final chapter. But you're still here, aren't you? If you're hearing these words, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a way you didn't expect. So let's take a moment, just you and me, to look at it together with gentle honesty. Aubrey's story reminds us that freedom isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the courage to walk away from what hurts, even when you don't feel strong. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Sometimes healing is simply choosing yourself again and again, until the fear fades and the light returns. Sometimes family isn't about perfection but about showing up when it matters. And sometimes, life gives us a second chance, not because we deserve it, but because we finally believe we do. If Aubrey's journey moved you, inspired you, or even helped you breathe a little deeper tonight, then don't leave quietly. Like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe so you never walk through these stories alone. You staying until the end means more than you know. Thank you for being here. Truly.